everybody. You are now in my kitchen and we are going to be making or cooking rocks today. I have two awesome assistants with me, Celeste and Jimena.
Hi.
And we're going to do 4 examples of the different kinds of rocks. Now, remember there are 3 different kinds of rocks: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. Your job is to guess which kind we are making of each of these examples for each one, okay? So let's get started. You ready, ladies?
Yeah.
So we're going to start with this one, our first example of rock. We're going to use a couple Starburst candies. So each of the girls has 3 Starburst there. And what I want you to do, those are your rocks. And now, it's rained, wind has blown for years and years and years. They've washed down in the river, all kinds of things have happened to it, and they've broken into small pieces that we call sediment. Can you go ahead and break your rocks into small pieces of sediment? All right, are we done?
Yeah.
So you have a whole bag of little pieces of sediment. Now, I want you to apply heat. How could you apply heat to that?
Rubbing it.
You could rub it. What is that? What do we call
Friction.
it? Friction. Yep. Pieces of sediment sometimes end up having friction. The force of friction occurs on them. So go ahead and give it some friction and give it some pressure. Because when rocks are underground and things are on top of them, they experience a lot of pressure. Lots of heat, lots of pressure.
I got all my pressure all done.
All right, so take your rocks back out of your bag. Whoops. All right.
It looks
Whoa! What happened to all of the little pieces of sediment?
They got mixed together.
They're all mixed together.
And now it's a big blob of gum.
Look, kind of looks like gum. It's actually a big blob of rock, right?
Yeah.
All the pieces of
sediment.
sediment with all that heat and pressure squeezed and pressed them together just like a certain type of rock that we find on Earth. Which type of rock do you think that is?
Metamorphic because it's big change.
Metamorphic, and it's metamorphic because it's changed a lot because of what happened to it.
Heat and pressure.
Heat and pressure. When we have both heat
Now-
and pressure, that's a sign that it's a metamorphic rock.
Now it's a rock.
So we now have Magic Shell chocolate fudge, but it's not been opened yet. So we are going to pretend that this is hot magma from under the ground, okay? Nice hot magma that's far under the ground. And we have, where do we find magma? When do we hear about magma? When we talk
In
about
volcanoes.
volcanoes, right? So the volcano erupts, the magma comes out. Now we call it
Lava.
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 All right, Mena, pour a little bit on top of the cool ground right here that we also call ice.
Oh. Is that enough?
Mm-hmm. What's happening to the lava that's on the ground up here?
It's freezing.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to it when it gets colder?
It hardens.
It's pretty hard. It turns hard. It's not liquidy anymore. What kind of rock do you think that might represent as it cools? So the hot lava comes up and hits the ground, and eventually it cools and hardens again like a hard rock.
I have a feeling it's igneous.
Yeah.
Good job.
Like
That's the igneous rock.
Yay, I win!
Igneous rocks are formed when hot lava cools and hardens, just like when that chocolate hit the ice cube. That's an example of an igneous rock. Good. So now we're ready for the next example of rocks.
Yay!
Okay? For this one, we have chocolate chips, vanilla extract, and a can of sweetened condensed milk. So Celeste, can you very carefully pour that in the pan on the stove?
Around it. Just
Around the pan. How about in the pan?
like oh, it's like batter.
The whole can. It is. It's very thick, like batter.
It looks like a vanilla lechera waterfall.
Oh yeah, lechera.
Mhm.
All right, that's good. And I'm going to turn the stove on, so be real careful. And Mayna, will you dump the bag of chocolate chips in?
All of it?
Yep. This is your lucky day. Full bag of chocolate chips.
And then after that, and then after when we are
And
done.
Celeste, you can start stirring. We don't want the chocolate to burn in the pan, but we're heating it up until it melts. And while she's doing that, we can add a teaspoon of vanilla just to help make it taste better.
Can I? Yeah. Whoa, it looks so cool.
So we now have nice melted chocolate here. We're gonna pour that into our pan.
Whoa.
And I put foil in the pan and I sprayed a little oil in it so it won't stick.
It has some bumps in it.
It does, kind of like rocks, right?
Yeah.
Rocks have bumps.
Obviously. How like the gum. Then we mashed up together.
All right, kind of spread that out. So, something about this is it's very smooth, kind of what state of matter?
Liquid.
It's basically liquid, right?
Mhm.
And it's hot. So, we are now going to take it and put it in the freezer for a little while. What do you think is going to happen to the rocks in the freezer now?
It's gonna solidify.
All right, I like that word, turn solid. When it turns solid, it's going to be hard, right?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So which kind of rock do you think that will be?
Metamorphic.
Why do you think that?
Because it's the last rock, and
I didn't tell you we were doing all three in order. Gotcha. Which one starts as a liquid and is hot, and then it cools and hardens?
Igneous.
Solid.
Igneous. That's another igneous, just like the chocolate on the ice.
Oh.
So magma is liquid rock, right?
Mhm.
And it comes out, and when it gets out above the earth, then it's cool. And as it cools, it hardens or solidifies again.
It's like the other experiment where it's hot and then put it on something cold.
Exactly. And no, the surface of the earth, where a lot of volcanoes are, isn't necessarily quite as cold as the freezer, but it's the same idea. When it comes up from under the ground, it turns back to solid rock, and as it cools, it forms igneous rocks. So that's going to be another example of igneous rocks. Good. Now had one of each of the types of rocks, and we still have one more example left. So we've got to figure out which one of these the last one will be. This one is a little more involved, so we actually have directions for it. So the directions say 3 cups of crispy rice cereal. So like Rice Krispies. 3 cups of that, and 3 cups of mini marshmallows, and 4 tablespoons of butter, which I've already cut, a little pinch of salt, a little bit of vanilla extract, which is sitting over there if you want to grab it, Mayna. Chocolate chips, M&Ms, and then cooking oil or spray to coat the pan so it
Right
doesn't
here.
stick. And there's the vanilla.
Here is
Step
the-
1, what's it say to do, Mayna?
Step 1 says melt the butter in a saucepan on low heat.
Let's do it. So here's the butter. We'll put that in our pan. And turn on low heat. And we'll watch what happens to the butter.
It's gonna liquefy.
And as that's starting to liquefy, let's look at step 2. After it's melted, remove the pan from the heat and add mini marshmallows 1 cup at a time, stirring to melt. So after that's melted, we're going to add in 3 cups of mini marshmallows.
Mini marshmallows.
it's getting there. Our solid butter. So we need 3 cups of mini marshmallows in that melted butter.
Can I measure 1 cup?
And then I'll do the next, and then Elisa will do the next.
All right, go ahead and put that one in. And Celeste, you can stir and melt those marshmallows now.
And now the next one.
And it says you can add a little heat back to the pan if once they've melted, we need to add the salt and the vanilla. So, how's it coming?
Almost melted. It's still
Yep, keep going. They gotta be all liquidy. All right, hold out your hand. We need a tiny, they say a pinch of salt. So that's just about what you would pinch in your hand. There you go. And then they said a splash of vanilla. So I'm gonna pour it in here first so I don't get too much.
Let's take a splash.
And add that in. Yep. And now we stir in the rice cereal, and we need 3 cups of this. So, let's see if we can just pour it this way. All right, go ahead and dump that in. Celeste, you can keep stirring. A little harder to stir now.
Yeah.
That was 2 cups and 3 cups.
Oops.
Ugh. So much on the edge.
I think that looks delicious. I mean, like great rocks. So we're going to put about half of it in our pan here, okay? So I'm just to kind of visualize it, make a line there. I'll do that bottom half in the pan.
Don't get in there extra.
All right, there's about half. Okay, and now you each get one of these, and you are going to apply, let's sit for a second. You're going to apply pressure, okay? So use the back of it to apply some pressure and kind of smooth it and flatten it all out, just like sediment on the ground. Oh, there's a science word. All right, that's pretty good. So now, over many, many, many years, other sediment, different types of rocks, sand, different types of materials have fallen onto the ground. All right, more pressure, pressure. Over time, that stuff gets pressed down in.
Look at that chocolate chip.
You got a little bit of drill there.
So you're using pressure to push down the sediment. All right, that's good. And now we're going to add some more sediment, other types of sediment onto the ground. More pressure, many, many, many years this is going on. I mean, you guys are like millions of years old now from all this.
How dare you call me old?
All right, over time, there's more sediment. Hold out your hands. Add some more sediment.
Scramble them.
And I like how Mayna's already applying more pressure over the years.
And
Do you see how we have lots of different layers of sediment? And over that time, Earth just keeps pressing down on it. What type of rock do you think we just made?
Sedimentary.
We made sedimentary rock. It's layers and layers of sediment and lots of pressure as it pushes down over the years. Good work.
Fire, pressure, both.
Good job. That's a good way to remember it. Igneous is like ignite, like something ignites or lights up. Sedimentary has to do with little pieces of sediment and pressure. So this has heat, this has pressure. And metamorphic are really big changes that usually result from heat and pressure.
When I think of mint, I think of memory, and memories are normally something that happened a long time ago.
That's a good way to think about it. Most rocks are from long ago. And it just keeps happening over and over and over. As this breaks up and becomes more sediment, it might get more pressure and more heat. It might become a metamorphic rock. If it gets really far in the ground, it might get so hot it turns liquid. And then it comes out as a volcano and cools and hardens, and you now have an igneous rock over and over.
This is a good rock. I bet it tastes really good, even though it's hard.
Have you ever eaten rocks before today?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, you have? Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys. Maybe you can get a chance to even make some rocks at your house. Bye.
Bye.
I wanna rock! I wanna rock!
How are the rocks?
Oh,
They taste so good.
Should we say don't try this at home? Don't eat rocks?
No.
For real?
From now on, I'm eating rocks for my whole entire life.
Are these the best rocks you've ever eaten?
Yeah,
Yes.
and such flattering colors.
Never say no.